Everybody knows about Marco Verratti. He's a bona fide PSG legend. The diminutive Italian midfielder had the second most appearances in Paris Saint-Germain history. He was famous for his tough tackling, smooth passing, and occasional dressing room smoking, allegedly. But in September 2023, a mainstay of this Paris Saint-Germain team for the last 11 years was gone. Why was this PSG legend forced into an early retirement? Well, it's got a bit to do with a 17-year-old from the northern suburbs of Paris. A bit about him later. Marco Verratti was a star of PSG's team for over 10 years after he signed from Pescara, with whom he just won Serie B in Italy in 2012. He joined PSG aged just 19 for €12 million in the second summer of Qatar's ownership of PSG. He joined in the same summer as Thiago Silva, Lucas Moura, Ezequiel Lavezzi and Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And over the course of his 11 seasons at PSG, he won 21 trophies overall, including 9 league titles. 460 appearances in total for Paris Saint-Germain, the second most, as I said, in the club's history. He also played 55 times for Italy and was a part of the Euro squad who won in 2020. And he'd been a mainstay during those 11 seasons at PSG after he joined from Pescara. He even signed a contract extension in December 2022 until June 2026. But by September 2023, he was gone. He'd moved to Qatar Stars League team Al Arabi in that September for €45 million. Which is basically a semi-retirement for a player like Verratti. But he's 30 years old, so he's not finished, but he just wasn't needed anymore. Not just because Luis Enrique decided to spend €100 million on a new midfielder, but because a 17-year-old from the academy was forcing his way into this Paris Saint-Germain team. So Warren Zaire-Emery started at PSG's academy in 2014, consistently playing above his own age group. In the 2021-22 season, aged just 15, he was playing in the under-19s, regularly impressing in the UEFA Youth League, and loads of scouts, people analysing him, could see that he was an elite talent, destined for first team football in the really not too distant future. He was first brought in to train with the first team under Pochettino in 2021, aged just 15. I couldn't even find Paris on a map at 15. He was an under-17 world champion with France in 2022. He was the only 2006 born player in that team, so he was the youngest. And at points last season, he was training with Mbappe and Messi in the morning, and then going off to school to finish his studies in the afternoon. And now with a man-of-the-match performance in PSG's 3-0 win over Milan in the Champions League, and his first goal of the season in PSG's 3-2 win away at Brest. What makes him so special, and why has he ousted Verratti from this PSG team? As ever, the first base we look at is the stats, and obviously he has high passing stats here. You can see that because of how high the possession PSG have. But the interesting part when you look here are the carries, the take-ons, and the assisting numbers, the creative numbers. They're a little bit different to Verratti's. Admittedly, Verratti didn't play a lot of minutes that we saw in the last 365 days in his graph, but I think it's very interesting. These parts are key parts of Zaïre-Emery's attacking contribution to PSG's team, and they're really highlighting the way that he plays and the goals and some of the little incidents that we'll see in a couple of screenshots of how integral he is to the way PSG play and how impressive he is for how young he is, highlighted in those different stats, particularly the carries and the take-ons. And his assist numbers have been crazy so far this year. He's the highest assister in the Champions League. So to be in the 92nd percentile at 17 across Europe's top 5 leagues is really, really impressive. And alongside Ugarte and Vitinha, or sometimes Fabian Ruiz, PSG's midfield has really been transformed under Enrique. And Zaïre-Emery is really the epitome of this change. He helps to maintain that high tempo possession that they have, being brave on the ball, and he does sometimes tend to lose the ball in build-up. However, him being inexperienced at this level, something you can kind of allow for a talent of this sort of level. So as we saw with the progressive carries in those stats, a real asset to Zaïre-Emery's game is that he's a really strong carrier, but he's also really smart when he does carry the ball and what he does with it. So he's not overly exuberant with trying to do everything as a young player and breaking into a top team might try and do to try and prove their worth to the manager. And he's really strong considering his youth within the league and how he's battling against men like 8-9 years older than him and really does hold his own. He's often really hard to pick out who the 17-year-old is in the team when you're watching them. It's really quite strange, quite impressive to be honest. And we'll see in the PSG Milan game from the Champions League how important those carries and that awareness of space around him and his smart use of the ball was to their win in both that game and in the game against Brest. Now this first screenshot really helps to highlight this. So this is in the Milan game, currently 0-0, 30 minutes in. Zaïre-Emery receives his ball in this kind of central area of the pitch. You can see he's not really got too many options. He can play this ball into Ugarte and kind of rotate position. But he chooses to take a player on, as he does tend to do, try and beat them, try and carry past them. In this case, it's Thierry Reinders. He tries to engage with him. He does. And you can see as we zoom in here a little bit, Reinders is all over him. Really can't get anywhere close to him, really highlighting the strength of Zaïre-Emery in these situations. and he progresses past him. See, the referee here is given an advantage because Reinders tried to foul him, couldn't even take him down. And Zaïre-Emery continues to carry this ball and eventually does play it into Mbappe into this space here, who scores from this. And this goal was really created from Zaïre-Emery's strength and his tenacity. He could have gone down a couple of times, as the referee's kind of shown here, that Reinders is fouling him. He could have gone down, he could have taken the ball, retained possession, but his driving run in this scenario creates a space for Mbappe to run into. Admittedly, it's a really good finish, but it's largely created by Zaïre-Emery, a 17-year-old in this PSG team, creating for him. It was just quite an impressive show of strength, considering Reinders is, 5-6 years older than him. I thought it was a really impressive show of how he does carry the ball really well. And another slightly different example of his carrying, but similar sort of outcome, is here in the game against Brest. And again, they're at 0-0. So these are quite important moments in the game that Zaïre-Emery's really, putting his mark on. So he sees this ball, receives this ball from Bradley Barcola in this area. And you can see that his first sort of impetus is to drive forwards. And now you can see that he's being pressed in these areas. Again, the easy pass is on. He can play it off to the right there, which I believe is Kang and Lee behind him, into the defender behind him. Or he can just rotate it back into Fabian Ruiz into this area. But he chooses to drive forwards and to kind of be positive with his runs, as he tends to do. And you can see again that he's been engaged here by a defender who's a midfielder here, who's 8 years older than him, and he completely outmuscles him. Moves past him, moves forward, puts him nearly on the floor. He gives up at a point you'll see here, but he's just stood off behind him. He can't even do anything. And Zaïre-Emery fires this ball from the edge of the box really impressively into that far corner, right into the top left-hand side of the goal. Kind of from those screenshots, you can really see how he's very able to use his strength. He's not afraid to kind of take on players, drive into the area, and to have the confidence to take that shot when you've got players like Mbappe and Gonzalo Ramos ahead of you who might be demanding the ball. Take that shot from the edge of the box. He's a man full of confidence who knows that he's being trusted, and at 17 doesn't really have the kind of inhibitions he's not really scared of anything at the moment. Another asset that Zaïre-Emery brings to this team is his intelligence on the ball and his intelligence of the space around him, his general kind of awareness. And this situation in particular in the Milan game really highlights this, and it also does in the Brest game, which we'll move on to in a second. But first, Dembele's holding this ball inside the box, and Zaïre-Emery's currently over here, sitting kind of on the edge in that sort of rest defence situation, but also able out there to rotate the ball as PSG often do. But the real strength of him in this situation is when this ball gets lost. So Dembele loses this ball, and Theo Hernandez, I believe, there tries to play a little pass around the corner into Tiani Reinders so they can move forward. And Zaïre-Emery kind of snuffs out. He's already on the move. You can already kind of see that the danger is going to be in this sort of area here. He moves forward. He sees that danger. His awareness of what's going on around him and his game intelligence of kind of what's happening means that he's able to cut out that pass, which he does. He gets there first and plays the ball into Mbappe, who gets a shot on target. To be alert to those situations and kind of understanding what might happen in the certain scenarios to get to those interceptions and create chances for other players around him is a real facet, particularly what we've seen in this game to Zaïre-Emery and how he is progressing. And he also has the awareness of space and the awareness of where his teammates are. So we're in the 88th minute here, and Zaïre-Emery's been playing the whole game, and he spots that this space here is open. And that's because Gonzalo Ramos here is really nicely positioned, occupying both the centre halves there. So Zaïre-Emery sees that he can turn into this space and drive forward. And considering that it's the 88th minute and he's been playing the whole time, it really shows a great engine and the great strength that he has to be able to pull off that carry in this certain situation. And Zaïre-Emery turns Yassine Adli really nicely, picks out the space that's been left by the left back moving in here with Kang and Lee from that throw in, and he drives all the way into the box from there. But this is where the real maturity kicks in. Now, Zaïre-Emery gets all the way into the box. You can see he does have the option here to shoot if he wants to. It's the 88th minute, they're 2-0 up. He might as well. But he has the maturity and the awareness of people around him to play the ball back across into this area. And, he doesn't fret. He's so calm on the ball, and it's a real asset to him that he has this kind of calmness in this area to pick out a pass, whereas some people might just kind of lash it over and just kind of think it's late in the game, might as well just take a shot. But as the pass gets played across, Gonzalo Ramos dummies the ball, Kang In Lee finishes it into the far right hand corner and gives Zaïre-Emery his third assist in 3 games in the Champions League, the highest of any player in the Champions League at the moment. And considering he's only 17, it's just so impressive. As we've seen, his awareness of the ball and where his teammates are really do highlight a really high talent that we're seeing that PSG have. Marco Verratti is a PSG legend, and it was always going to take a real star to dethrone him from that squad. But I think that Warren Zaire-Emery as we've seen, has shown tremendous attributes in his maturity, his awareness, his strength, and his composure, just to name a few, to really cement his place in this PSG team. At 17, he sometimes lacks experience in situations, i.e., as we said, sometimes making mistakes in build-up. But with each passing game, he is improving. And he is still 2 and a bit years younger than Bellingham, to give that context. So that is a player playing well above his age category and really performing well. Verratti was coming to the end of his PSG career, but the diamond that PSG have in their midfield justifies Luis Enrique's decision in the summer to get rid of Verratti and entrust Zaïre-Emery, alongside Ugarte, was replacing that small Italian smoke-filled hole that Verratti left. I'm sure we'll be hearing loads about Zaïre-Emery as he continues to cement himself in this PSG squad and maybe becomes arguably the best teenager in world football at the moment. I'll leave that to you to debate in the comments. But like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you'd like to, and I will see you in the next video, which will hopefully be very soon. See you later.